Hi, this is Jerry again, and this is section 2 of our discussion on dynamic support and resistance, and we'll pick up where we left off in section 1. Now, we have our support level and our resistance levels drawn. Now, after we draw our support and resistance, we see this bar here. We have a breakout, and then we go to our normal breakout entry strategy because this is a down signal. And when do we want to enter short? The best time to enter short is when green meets green. Just like the best time to enter long is when red meets red. But we'll get more into that later. But we see we have our breakout here, and then we see this next green bar pulls up to our support, because once support is broken, as we know, now it turns into resistance. Now at first this is our resistance level, but now after we've broken below here, this lower line, this is now our resistance level, and we want to enter on the pullback as usual, which would be when price pulls back and touches our support level. But we really want it to touch the green bar, and most times it will, because that's where these buyers are now sellers, so they're going to start selling. A key point, and listen very closely here, if we enter on this green bar here, we enter short. If this green bar closes above support, which is now resistance, if it comes back and closes back in here, we want to get out. That's a signal that a price is going to try to go back up and test resistance here again. And this is how we can keep our stops really small, because if it closes back up in here, 9 times out of 10, now since this is support, before it goes back up and tests the resistance again, it's going to close above here, come back and test support now, and then go back up. So if we close above here, we can still get out. Basically, most times we'll be able to get out at break even if it pulls back here. But in this particular situation, price followed form. We had a breakout here, we had a pullback up to support, which is now resistance, and then price reversed and continued back down. And once we get this close below support, just for the sake of terminology, and terminology a lot of times it's important because it keeps us organized and on track. And once we have this break or close below our former support level, now this former support level becomes resistance 1, and the higher resistance level is designated as resistance 2. So if we're talking, we're communicating, and I mention resistance 1 and resistance 2, now you'll know what I mean, because there are always more than one support and one resistance level, as we know. And now let's follow the down move, or the continuation from the breakdown through support, and we go down here and we see that we have a close on the down or red bar here, and the very next bar we have a green bar. And this is where the dynamic or the threading part becomes more clearer, because now we have a new dynamic support level once we have a green bar, or we have a turn. Now a turn is not completed until we have a pivot. But once you see that green bar, the market is trying to turn. And if you're short and the market shows you that it's trying to turn or wants to turn, if you're short down to here, you want to get out at the close of this bar, because now what we do is we draw a support line at the extreme low of this down bar. And so now this is support, this is resistance. We have support, resistance 1, and resistance 2. At this moment in time, this is the level we want to focus on. Resistance 1 and support. If we get a breakdown, just like we did up here, the same format follows. If we get a breakdown below support, that's a sell signal, a continuation signal, and we want to go short on a pullback up to the green bar. And when we look here, we see that after the green bar, the very next bar came down and closed below support. You may not be able to see it very closely here, but indeed we did close below support here. And the very next bar here came back up, tested support or former support, because now, as we now know, it's resistance. And once we close below here, okay, we pull back up, tested resistance, which is the green bar, and look what happened. We go back down. Now at this point, once we get a close below here, this is now resistance 1, resistance 2, and resistance 3. Now once again, if we enter short on this bar, if we get a close above this line, this resistance line now, this resistance line once again becomes support. Okay, I repeat, if we get a close back within resistance, resistance turns back into support. So we would not want to go short again unless we get a close below support again. Now I hope that makes sense, and as we go along, I hope it makes a little bit more and more sense to you. And our typical breakout strategy, and we want to ride the move down until we see a new green bar. Once we see a new green bar, we have a turn or an attempt to turn, and the safest thing to do is to get out if you are short. And once again, we have established a new dynamic support level, which would be the extreme low of the red bar. Now you can better understand the difference, because when we talk about our major and minor support levels, we're talking about the swing levels. For instance, up here, this is an upswing, and this is a high of the upswing. And if we're looking at it from a swing level, we're talking major and minor support, okay, then this would be our low or our breakout point here. But right now we're just focusing on dynamic support and resistance, and with dynamic support and resistance, we only need 1 or 2 bars. A swing should have at least 3 bars to be considered a full swing. Okay, so this will end section 2 on dynamic support and resistance, and we'll pick up where we left off in the next section. Section 3, we'll pick up and discuss further dynamic support and resistance.